G'day, welcome to the Chicken Channel. Do you know, we've got a lot of really quick recipes. We've got some medium time recipes and we've got some really fun ones, impressive ones. This falls in the latter category. This is an impressive one. Chicken wrapped in salt dough and then baked. You end up getting the most fantastic texture and flavour in the chicken. Bit of a fiddle to make it, but it's worth it, always worth it. The salt dough is pretty straightforward. The first thing you've got to realise is, first of all, 500 grams of plain flour goes in and 500 grams of a fine salt. We're not eating this dough, okay? You die, too much salt. And also, what we're going to do is flavour the dough, because as the chicken cooks in this dough, the flavourings we put in will start to penetrate, okay? What we have here is half a cup of rosemary, just the needles. We also have 4 cloves of garlic that have been peeled. You don't actually need to peel them. In they go. And let's just blend this to make sure everything gets mixed through and chopped up, right? So give it a little moment. That's all. So the blades have chopped up the solid ingredients. Now we have 10 egg whites. That's what's going to bind all of this. And blend away. Depending on the egg whites, depending on your flour, what we're seeking here is a dough that's fairly pliable, that we can manage quite easily. Remember, we're not eating, it's purely physical. When was the last time I said that? You know, this is purely physical, and we're going to interesting design. There we go. Let's remove this. We'll put this into another bowl here. You can see it's a chunky sort of a dough, and in we go. The fun thing about this dough, because you're not eating it, right, you don't have to worry about all the standard dough procedures. You know, don't overwork it, don't do this, don't do that. You know, it's just get it going. It's just a casing. Right. Now, mixing this by hand, I can feel that's fairly soft. So always have some extra flour on hand and add it in and mix away until you get it not so grainy and easy to manage. Big tip though with the use of salt. Don't use a coarse salt, whatever you do, because what happens is if the salt is coarse, then this will crumble too easily. So it's a fine salt that we're after. You can see what's happening here? It's getting more and more pliable. It's a feel thing. There we go. Now that's not difficult. What we've done so far is not difficult. Now let's take this out and deal with it. The next step is to bunch it up roughly. And what we need is 2/3 and 1/3. About that, I'd say. That's a bit thicker there. It's about that. So there's our third, there's our 2/3. And on a very well floured surface, let's roll out our 1/3. This won't take long. Now we're rolling this out so our chicken, our wonderful chicken, will sit there nicely. Right. There we go. You see how easy that is to work with, and see how the rosemary's in that dough? Fantastic. Let's just move that to the side. And again, heavily floured surface, our 2/3. Two-thirds rolled twice as much. Okay? Roll away and then take your time and shape it. In fact, it's going to happen rather quickly, which is good. So moving it around, feel free to use as much flour as you want. Be liberal. be labour, doesn't matter, but just use lots of flour. There we go. Mix that. And it's roughly twice. Bearing in mind, this, you'll see at the end, it all makes sense how big it should be. Done. That's our dough, all under control. That's simple. Over to the bird, right? Here we have a standard, either size 16, size 18 Leonica chicken. To prepare this for being wrapped in the dough, a few things we like to do. We like to flavour the cavity, all right? So a squeeze of lemon juice in there, pop in the rest of the lemon. A few cloves of garlic, leave the skin on, you're not eating them, just crushed with the back of a knife to release its flavour. A few whole peppercorns, about a teaspoon, in they go. And some of the herbs we plan on using. We've got some fresh parsley, we have some bay leaf, and we have some French tarragon. In we go. What we're going to do next is tie the legs together. So as we tie the legs together, it just makes the bird more compact, which means all these bits protruding won't burst through the pastry. So you can cross them over, round a few times, and just tie. That's simple. There, the legs tied. And again, our flappy bits here. What we can do is either cut them off there to keep it nice and compact, or fold them under, just like so. Fold it under there. So either way, whichever you prefer. Now, back over to our pastry, because we can just rattle straight along. I'll move some things out of the way. Cheers. And starting with the smaller pastry, the base pastry, let's just see that we've rolled it out right. That fits our chook. That's what we want, okay? So let's just place Henrietta directly on that. Maybe a little bit wider. Just make sure that when you're looking directly down, she's covered. The next thing we do is, with a little bit of water, there it is, we're going to brush, before this is wet by the way, brush off the excess flour. I always like to know when I've been cooking. I have to wear more aprons. I get so much in trouble. Anyway, who cares? Right, water all around the edge, but only wet one side, because the dry side sticks easier to the wet side rather than the two wet sides. For more flavouring, place over the breast some parsley leaves, some bay leaves. That looks prettier that way up. Pretty's my middle name. And some French tarragon. All right, further flavourings, both from within and from the top. Now with the pastry, if this works, I'll build a small church straight over the top. And there we go. Right, one church coming up. There we go, oops. The legs. Now, press down all the way around. All right. Shape it all the way around because we want to encase the bird. And that's just about right. Now, we did this on purpose. We talked about it a lot on set, the crew and I. I said, Jeff, could you please stuff it up? Make a mistake. and we work out how to fix it. So I said, look, it goes against the nature. Don't know if I can, I'll try, but we've succeeded here. We have ourselves a hole in the pastry. So all we need to do is patch up the hole. See that? Hence the excess pastry. So what we do, it's pretty straightforward. Flatten that, roll it out, and patch it. Won't bother, but roll it out nice and thin, wet around there, and stick it on, a bit like a bicycle patch as a kid. Now this goes into an oven, a preheated oven, 180 degrees, just the way it is. Now before you do that, one thing you need to do is make sure that you can take the chicken out later. Now in order to have that happen, just make a line, not all the way through, all the way around the chicken. And this line will help the pastry crack, hopefully, in a straight line. So it's just a feel thing, just halfway through what you feel is the thickness of the dough. So that will crack and lift off. That's rather important. The other thing is we used egg whites, just taken 1 egg yolk and the same amount of milk and brushed all over here, up into the lines fine. There we are, final touch up. Just presentation only, we're not eating the dough. We have to bake our little Henrietta here. So onto a baking tray that's lined with a bit of non-stick paper, just to make sure everything comes out smoothly. With some sort of flat lifting device, a trowel, we're going to lift carefully onto our tray. Done. Now let's have a little bit of a spin here. This is Henrietta the model. Look from the back. You can look closely, you'll see the patch has been put on. Really easy to do, just wet the inside of the patch and stick it on. And it sticks really easily, no problems at all. Okay, into the oven, which has been preset at 180 degrees. In we go. 1 hour, 20 minutes cooking. Switch the oven off, give another 20 minutes resting, and then we're ready to check it out. A thing of beauty. Here is our little bird, beautifully baked. You see the egg wash? It's pretty handy compared to below. Now, if you want to have a really perfect presentation of lifting off, like the cranial screw top method in Dr. Man with Two Brains, lifting it off perfectly, right? What you need to do is saw all the way around. Can you hear that? Now this is one tough dough. Yes, don't ever try and make a loaf of bread out of this. Now, you can see that's the case. If you don't want a perfect presentation, use a persuader. Just crack into it, not a problem. Lift off the dough. There she is. You can try the old hammer chisel method, right, which is tink, 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 tink. However, if you really, really want to make this a perfect lift off, can I please have, thank you very much, this. Now don't be put off by all of this. The reality is you bust it open and lift it. What do you want? I'm going for neat. I'll take my time, I'll go all the way around with this and lift it off, and then you'll see what a perfect little chicken we have here. Leonica, I think, at its best. Right, the big reveal, the moment we've been waiting for. Here she comes. There you go. Isn't that impressive? I think so. That, by the way, encases all of those flavours in the pastry, and when you lift it off the table, you've got a guaranteed platter there. It's a really good recipe, and it's not that difficult. Looks it, but it's not. Give it a crack. Leonica chicken at its best.